Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jason's Take On podcast series. It's myself, Jason Noble, here in a gloomy looking London. Almost time for the weekend. And my partner in crime, Mr. Whitehead in the US. Say hello, Jason.
Hello, Jason.
We are super excited today. We have a very special guest. We're talking about the next 5 years in customer success. So really looking longer term. A very warm and big welcome to Nick Mehta, the CEO of Gainsight, and I'm sure a guest that doesn't need much of an introduction. Nick, you're the CEO of Gainsight. You're an advisor on the board of directors of many tech companies. You are one of the godfathers of customer success. You've written the book for customer success. You've written the customer success economy book that I think talks through some of these really monumental shifts that we need to make today. You're an award-winning author. You've been with Gainsight, I think, for 14, 15 years now, and you've seen
about 10 years. 10 years,
but you've seen the company flourish and grow from what it was in the beginning to a huge organization today that's leading the way in customer success. But you've also been there to see the industry grow from where it was to where it is today and how it's continuing to grow. But you've also been pivotal in building, leading, defining the industry that we all know as customer success. You're a big Steelers fan, I know. You're super passionate about physics as well, and I love that. I'm a fellow physicist.
Love it, Jason.
I love the play back to physics. Everything is about physics and maths. And of course, you're a big fan, and we are, of your music parody videos. Well, Nick, welcome. We are super thrilled to have you here with us. We'll just set the record straight. We've had some other big hitters from Gainsight. We've had Dan before you, and Adam, but we had to invite you on. So welcome, Nick. Please.
So great to be in your guys' company, and I really appreciate it. Love what you're doing for the community, and obviously very honored to be on anything that Dan and Adam were on. So thank you.
Nick, I said already, I can't believe anyone in customer success doesn't know who you are, and we're super thrilled to have you on here. But I'd love a quick intro from you, but then also what is customer success is in your own words, and why is this number one driver for growth in teams today?
Yeah, totally. You did it so well, Jason. I won't elaborate. CEO of Gainsight, been doing this a long time. Very passionate about customer success in three levels, really. There's the level of it as a business strategy. There's the level of it as a profession, which, those are two different levels. And then obviously we make money by making technology for customer success. And so I think there's three different levels that I end up spending time at. And to answer your question, I think what's really incredible is over the last 10 years, as more and more companies have moved to these recurring revenue business models like SaaS and cloud, they always go through the exact same kind of like inevitable process where they come in taking all the ideas they had from the old world of transactional selling, where you sell to a customer, and then after the sale, what you do is you support them. You wait for them to call you. And what you realize is any recurring revenue business, at the end of the day, if you're not getting that customer to value and adoption, they're not going to stay with you. They're not going to grow. And if they don't stay with you and grow, you're never going to make any money. All of the economics in a recurring revenue business comes from your existing customers, from the lifetime value of them. And today, companies think about this in the metric net revenue retention. We'll talk more about it. But that metric has become a real North Star metric for most subscription businesses and a real way to drive value. So what's happened is companies have figured out customer success is indeed a function, but it's much more than that. It's really the way to drive value in a recurring revenue business.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, as we said, you've been with us from the very beginning, and you've seen such progress over the years. Do you think customer success is really where it needs to be yet in terms of wider recognition and the level of investment that needs it? Do most companies get it now, or is there still a lot of people out there that haven't heard of it or don't fully buy into the promise of customer success?
Yeah, I think that, so if you look inside technology businesses, I think the why and the what are pretty well defined in most companies. And honestly, if you're a tech company and you don't know what customer success is, you're just literally living in a cave and you're not paying attention at all. And so the why and the what, why being, okay, you've got a recurring revenue business, it's all about lifetime value, net revenue retention. I think everyone gets that, right? It's so important. And then the what of what is customer success at 30,000 feet, I think is pretty well defined. But I think where the how is where it really comes, rubber meets the road, right? 10,000 companies practicing customer success. There's probably 20,000 definitions of how to do it, right? Like literally there's all these different approaches. And it's not, by the way, I've thought about this a lot. I don't think it's wrong that there's different approaches because customer success is so fundamental to a business that because businesses are different, customer success is also going to be a little different. Just the same way, company A, B, and C's products are different, which makes sense because they're different companies. The same way customer success is a little different in each company, right? If you have a consumption-based pricing model or subscription, if you sell to big customers or small customers, if your client's very technical or if they're more business-oriented, if you're an early stage company, you're more mature, you have one product, you have multiple products. There's a lot of flavors of customer success. And so that's why I say customer success today is much more in the how phase of how do I do it for my business and my maturity. And also one of the things we all make mistakes on is trying to apply the model from a company that's totally different to my model. Maybe I'm a small startup selling a security product and I'm trying to apply Salesforce's customer success model to my company. It doesn't apply at all, right? And so that how do I find what works for me, that's where the energy is right now.
Absolutely. It's nice to hear you say that too, because whenever I start with a new client as part of our customer success consulting, one of the first things we ask them is, what do you actually do for customer success? All over the map. And I've yet to get the same answer twice. It's good to hear you say that.
Totally. And I think that a lot of it is also over time, you're trying to learn and improve, just like with your product. I think product's a really good analogy, right? Product isn't static. Nobody's, hey, we're done with the product. We don't have to do any more product work. That doesn't ever happen. Customer success is never going to be done. You know what I mean? People are like, oh, when am I going to be done? No, you're never going to be done. It's like your product. You're always getting better. You're always changing. Your market's changing. Competition's changing. Your underlying software is evolving. There's new features. Over time, the new features are less mature, but your old features are more mature. Your new customers are less mature. So it's a constant iteration. And if you're in this field, the only way you'll survive is if you love that. If you love the iteration. If you're looking to be done and, oh, I figured it all out, you should get a different job.
I think we've been saying this for a while. It's constant change. And we're seeing this rate of change now in technology is just growing.
Totally.
And you look at our kids and just the pace of technology change for them. They're getting more used to it than we are. But we're that transition where things weren't changing and now they're changing this fast. I love the way you talk about different flavors of customer success.
Yeah.
That's one of the best ways to describe it, because a lot of the answers are, we always say it depends.
Yeah,
and it really does. It depends on so many factors. And I think that understanding that's okay. And you've got to find the model. It's the principles that are the same. This is what we're trying to do. What do you see, given that, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges today for the industry itself and then for customer success professionals and leaders?
Yeah. So we actually did this presentation at our Pulse conference about 6 weeks ago. And basically we talked about this idea that the future of subscription businesses is this idea of having a more durable approach to growth, right? In the last 10 years, with all this crazy, all the money that was out there and the funding, it was growth at all costs. And companies spent a lot of money on new sales and marketing and burn a lot of money, and the economics didn't matter. And somehow concepts now like profit and EBITDA are coming back into fashion, right? And so the question is, how do you grow in a more durable and efficient way? And what are the challenges to that? So starting not at customer success, but let's start with a bigger problem. And so if you looked at that kind of challenge of durable growth and you said, what are the things that people are struggling with right now? One thing people struggle with still to this day is the idea that unless you really have built your foundation of customer success, you're still surprised too often. That's one of the core emotions in customer success. You guys have probably both been there too, which is a customer reaches out to you and says, oh, we're thinking about churning. And you're like, what? And that surprise really shouldn't be allowed now, right? Like, we have all this data, we've got processes, we've got systems. So the first thing that people wrestle with a little bit is the surprises. Now that's, I think, going down over time, but that's something that I think if you have that, you've got to fix it. Number two, which is I think extremely timely, is scaling without hiring people. And so this is the thing that I think every company realized the value of customer success, but they're also trying to get more profitable or burn less money. And so therefore, most companies have really slowed down hiring, but they're bringing on new customers. And so therefore, this idea of digital-led customer success, doing things like in-app communications, using community, digital journeys, pooled customer success, self-service, that second area of how do we scale customer success without hiring more people? That's the second thing that people wrestle with a lot. Third is people wrestle with this idea that why is customer success so internally oriented? We talk about gross revenue retention and churn and upsell, net promoter score. Those things customers don't really care about those at all. And so how do we have more of an outside in approach to customer success? How do we bring the customer more into this versus making it just about us. So that's the third. That's things like creating a joint success plan with the customer side by side based on their goals, or creating a community where customers are learning from each other. So that kind of involving the customer, that's a third big thing that people are wrestling with. Fourth is this idea that up till now, I think a lot of companies would say customer success, your job is to prevent churn, right? Stop churn, fix the leaky bucket. But the truth is that at some point, it's not just about reducing churn. Maybe you've taken your retention rate from 80% to 90%. Now the question is, how are you actually helping customers to expand? And the truth is, it's not as simple as do you do focus on churn or expansion. Expansion often will reduce churn, because if customers are doing more with you, they're going to be more sticky. And so this idea of, we call it going on offense. How do you move from defense to offense in customer success? That's a fourth challenge. Fifth is this idea of how do we do more through the product, right? At the end of the day, customer success is fundamentally about closing that gap between what the product does and what the customer's desired outcomes are. Actually, Allison Pickens, who was our original COO, came up with that idea of closing the gap. And so that concept is so important, but you don't always want to be closing the gap. You want to be extending the product. So getting feedback to the product team, making the product in the app better at driving into onboarding and adoption, et cetera. And then finally, what we talk about at Gainsight is the fact that, especially right now, clients are more stressed than ever, given everything going on in the world. Our teams are dealing with a lot. And so having more of a human first approach to how we think about our teams and our customers, never forgetting that, like, it's not just a client or an account, but it's actually a bunch of human beings. Each of them have their own goals. They've got career goals, right? Tracking those people and your stakeholders, doing a little bit more of that account management, relationship management. Sometimes you can forget about that when you've got all this great data. So those 6 challenges we think are the biggest impediments to durable growth right now.
Wow, those are great. I really love what you said there too, and so many different elements. I love how to scale your impact without scaling your team, and really helping customers take more of that teach a man to fish approach, where it's let me build your capacity so you're not as reliant on us as we go forward. And I think there's still a lot of room there to happen around that. I'm wondering, as we look at this, and do you think that CS professionals are really doing enough to beat the drum for what's needed and what's not? And if not, what else should CS professionals be doing with their customers or internally with the rest of their team members to really get everyone else on board? Because I think there's still wide gaps of customer expectations, but also even across sales and marketing, what they expect versus what customer success expects.
Totally. Yeah. So I think there's probably 3, if I'll give one tip for each of the 3 audiences, I think that are really important. So one audience is your product team. We talked about that. I'll give a little advice there. One audience is your sales team, and one audience is your customers. So let's talk about each of those 3. So on the product team side, I think every CSM in the world has a list of things that they wish the product would do differently. Every single one, 100% of them. I guarantee if you're listening, you have that list in your head. Now, the challenge is that if every CSM just emails the product people independently with, okay, here's my list, and the product people just get a list of 1,000 different things, it's really hard for them to figure out what really matters. And so what I would, a couple pieces of advice from a product perspective. Number one is, before you go to them asking for something, try to go to them to help. It's basic human relationship 101. So maybe they need help finding beta customers for a new feature. Maybe they need help getting feedback on a new mock-up or design. Maybe they need help understanding who the best customers to talk to get research interviews. Be that CSM that's helping the product team, calling them out on Slack about how great the new feature is, or a customer loves it, right? Do some stuff to build some relationship capital with the product team before you ask for stuff. And then when you're asking, this is where the leader really comes in. Build a process where you're consolidating those requests, you're ranking them, you're providing examples with data. And we actually added a feature of Gainsight that basically does this now, where we're like, okay, we actually integrate with product management tools, and we're like letting the CSM flag features, but then letting the PM see, okay, what customers are affected, how much AR is affected. So giving like more context and prioritization, and then being willing to roll your sleeves up to help. We had a customer event this week, and one of the DOs said, hey, if you're a CSM and you're complaining about the product, then you don't get to complain if you're not going to go then join the session to give them the feedback and actually talk about it. If you're just emailing into the void, then we're not going to listen to your input, right? And so that's in the product side. On the sales side, I think one of the biggest things people are doing is building more of an integrated methodology for defining the client's desired outcomes in the sales process, What are those goals, what, et cetera, with a bit of a framework, not just like open-ended, but here's maybe a checklist of goals. And then having that automatically feed to the CSM team. So for example, a lot of our clients, and we do this too, in the CRM, like Salesforce, they'll have like, when you're closing an opportunity, what are the client's desired outcomes? What are their KPIs? Make it pretty structured, and then automatically have that create a success plan. For example, in Gainsight, if you're using that, so it automatically creates a success plan for the CSM with, okay, here's the goals and here's the plan to go achieve them. And so that kind of put pre to post sales handoff, no brainer. And then finally, from a customer perspective, I think one of the biggest things that CSMs need to do is be prescriptive while being consultative. And it's a real hard balance, right?
Yeah.
So on one extreme is consultative. I'll do whatever you want. Whatever you want the product to do, we're going to do. But the problem is the customer ends up using the product in bad ways or doesn't get value. And then they blame the vendor no matter what. Why did you let me do that? And then on the other hand is the CSM, this is the way you do things. The customer's like, well, our business doesn't work that way. And so, no, this is the way you have to do it. And that doesn't work either. And so you have to find this balance of being prescriptive. For example, our best clients do these 3 things with the product. Which of these are relevant to you? Maybe not all 3 are. And then actually like hearing them, having it be a dialogue, but being willing to say things like our best clients do X or our best practices Y, and having some confidence around that. So those are three sets of tips for the 3 audiences.
That they're so varied as well there, Nick. And that the first 2 kind of product and sales, it's really building on that kind of growing collaboration that we need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Customer success is across the business. It's not one team. This is us all working together. And I think there's so much that we can do to help break down these silos that we still see. And I love that, getting the CSMs involved in product, roll your sleeves up, help them identify those customers. And it's great because I'm not seeing enough of that yet in many organizations. And it's a trend I'd love to see grow more and more.
Love it.
You, Nick, we're beginning to see customer success appearing outside of the world of SaaS and tech.
Yes.
And it's really exciting to see more organizations, and even a lot now in Europe, investing in your CCO roles and C-level roles that have the customer focused. Where do you see the next big growth areas in terms of new industries for customer success?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been following this for a long time, obviously out of great interest, because this expands our addressable market, right? And I think what's happened is, you think about all the other industries in the world, and actually let's start with the fact that what is a tech company, right? It's a little bit hard to define now because tech is everything to some extent, right? But what's happening is you have all these kind of vertical industries where you have the incumbents, and then you have often technology-based disruptors, right? So let's take financial services as an example. So, you've got all the credit card companies and then the banks that accept credit cards. And then you've got online payments companies like PayPal, right? Or Stripe or anyone else. And so what we find is you'll have in each industry, the disruptors and the disrupted embracing customer success. Usually the disruptors first. So for example, PayPal has created a big customer success team to manage all the merchants, meaning the people that accept PayPal credit cards. They use Gainsight and we work with them. And so we've seen that. Another example that's in the disruptor category is in all the healthcare IT technology companies that are using technology to really change the way healthcare works. And many of them now have customer success, a lot of them use Gainsight. And so we see that a lot. But then you see traditional companies that are trying to not be disrupted or disrupting themselves. So I'll give you a couple examples there. There's a big telecommunications company in the US called Lumen. It used to be called CenturyLink. And they basically provide broadband and other connectivity. And they used to have more of a traditional sales and service approach. And they basically worked with McKinsey Consulting and created this customer success team. And it's big, huge team. And they basically are trying to have a more digital first experience. Another example is a company called Rockwell Automation, which is out of Wisconsin. They make equipment in factory floors. Now, with that equipment, they often now sell software that helps you manage and monitor the equipment. And since that software is now a subscription, they started saying, hey, we need to do customer success, and more of the revenue is coming from recurring revenue. And so those are examples where you have big incumbents. These are both huge companies adopting it. And then you've got the startups and the disruptors adopting it. So I think if you guys it, you're probably going to see a little bit in financial services and fintech, kind of like the PayPal example, because that's naturally recurring revenue. You're seeing it in healthcare for sure. That's definitely a big area. You're seeing it in industrials, the Rockwell example, telecommunications. Now, the thing that these things have in common is they all have some nature of a recurring revenue model, right? So think of financial services. You use your PayPal and on a regular basis, there's a recurring transaction, right? You think of healthcare, there's a recurring patient coming in, right? You think of telco, there's a recurring billing relationship. And so each of these examples, even the manufacturing, you have a recurring software relationship. And so I think over time, how many companies 10 years from now won't have software as part of their business? Zero. Every single company will have it. And every one of them will go through this curve of, oh, wow, we started selling the software, but people aren't really using it. What do we do? And then they're going to go Google, what do we do? And they're going to find customer success. They're going to find your podcast. They're going to read our book. And that's how companies get into this area.
I think that example there of the telcos is great because it is, we're the same in Europe. In the UK, we've got lots of big telcos that have these four-play models that it's been a subscription service forever. They might have a retention department, but they're not thinking about growth, what they can do. How do they?
That's right. And even the retention department historically in telcos is your classic reactive retention. In other words, I'm trying to cancel my subscription and they're like, oh, we'd love to give you 6 months for free. But obviously that's not customer success. So
get ahead of the game. If you could give me this price now, why didn't you give me the price before?
Exactly.
The other industry, I think there's a big play in other financial companies like insurance.
Insurance would be a huge opportunity over time for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nick, then I love what you've said so far. I'm going to ask you to put on your crystal ball for a minute. And within looking in the customer success space, and you've been here for so long and seen so many changes over the past 9-10 years, where do you see the changes, the biggest changes in the next 2 to 3 years, but then even looking longer term, 5 to 10 out, if you were going to go Nostradamus here and write down, here's my predictions, what would they be?
Yeah. So I'll give you 3 categories. So number 1 is that kind of the way we do customer success is going to become much more multi-channel, tied into this digital concept, right? So today we think of it as, okay, it's largely a human activity. You hire CSMs, you have them reach out to customers, right? You do meetings, Zoom meetings, video meetings, et cetera. That's great. It doesn't scale to all your customers. Also, lots of customers don't want to engage that way. Maybe they don't want to do a call or a QBR or whatever. And so what you're going to see is absolutely CS organizations driving this end-to-end journey where they're looking at the email communications, the in-app, the community, the self-service. And right now that stuff is pretty fragmented in companies. Some companies don't do all that, but the ones that do, the product team's looking at in-app and the marketing team sending some emails and support, the community is more of a like support deflection. And so looking at more of an end-to-end multi-channel journey for customer success versus the default is a human being. Digital first is some way people talk about that. So that's one prediction. Second one is I think that product teams will now proactively want to get input from customer success and solicit feedback. And we're seeing that. It's definitely the minority. A majority, I think companies are still trying to figure out that relationship. But in the future, product teams are going to realize CSMs are like their best friends because they really understand the context of why customers are asking for something and what the value proposition is and all that. So you're going to see a much stronger relationship. And third is you're definitely going to see CS teams owning more revenue. That doesn't mean the CSM is on a quota. Some people conflate those two. It could be that the chief customer officer has a CSM team and an account management team underneath them. It could be the CSM owns the renewal. Could be they get credit for leads for expansion, but definitely much more of a tie into revenue. Those 3 things I'm 100% confident will happen.
I think you just look at how the industry is changing, and that's kind of that maturing. All of those things are signs of maturity, and there's a long way to go for it. And what you said about some companies still don't do it, but we've got such a diversity of where people are, but such a growth. Nick, this has been really insightful. Big thank you once again. What we do like to do is give you what we call a bold challenge question.
Yes.
The one for you, it's not that much of a curveball, I promise. I hope it's not.
I love curveballs.
What is the number one thing that a CS professional leader should be doing today in their organizations to really continue the growth of what customer success really is and for their own customer success? So
yeah, I think the number one thing is probably, if you're a leader, is spending more time cross-functionally. So I think it's natural. You're a leader, you got your team, you got your customers and escalations and all those types of things that kind of pulls you in. But what are you doing to relationship build with the head of sales, the head of product, the head of marketing, et cetera? And what are you doing to build those bonds? Not just tactically, oh, we've got a customer situation, can you help? That happens naturally. But more strategically, how much time are you spending? Just let's spend a half a day together with my head of sales and plan out the future of the customer journey. Let's spend a half a day together with my head of product and talk about better ways that our teams can work together. And so are you taking a step back, spending more of that unstructured time to build those cross-functional relationships?
That I think is brilliantly summed up. And it's that collaboration. How do we work better as a team? Love it. This has been such a great podcast. I think all of the real examples you've seen about things that you guys are doing, what in the industry is really going to resonate with all of our listeners. So a huge thank you again.
Thank you so much, Jason's. I appreciate it. Really, it's been great.
Thank you. All right.